My name's Brittany. My friend Dan emailed me a few weeks ago now and said we should talk about career mistakes or like career path choices that we make that maybe feel like mistakes or something like that. I said yes because I'll say yes to anything Dan asked me to do because I know it's going to be a good time. And then one of my friends posted on LinkedIn. Her name's Kristen Giant. You should follow her. Kristin Giant. And she said, we formulate these stories about our career path and how we got to where we are today, and we force it to make sense. And we practice it until the whole narrative has a climax and it has points. But Kristen walked away. She's an attorney. She walked away from her career to teach this special group of high schoolers in Fort Wayne that they essentially learn through projects. And she realized that if she told them the narrative of her career, that it was a disservice, because that's not how careers happen. You make decisions terrified. You make decisions in the dark. You make the wrong decisions all the time. So I was really glad to hear that message from Kristen after Dan reached out to me. So we're just gonna have a freeform conversation and kind of see where it goes from there.
Well, Brittany, thank you. And that's a really great point. Thank you also again for doing this. I don't think we have this conversation enough. And the idea that we make stories about our careers, I think that's completely true. I don't know how I could describe how I got here other than I said yes sometimes. I said no other times. I quit. I've quit plenty of jobs where I didn't have anything else to go to. I've quit jobs that maybe I shouldn't have. I've taken opportunities that I kind of regret. And I had a lot of wonderful jobs that I will never regret. But I don't know how I could tell that story either. I think I make it up as I go along. We expect some arc, and yet it's that jagged line. You know, it never goes as we plan. So, I really like that.
Yeah. It's a total disservice to not only the young people that are starting out their careers, because we're telling them it's a smooth ride, everything will make sense,
It
but
feels,
also to our peers.
yeah, it feels like science fiction when you
Okay.
tell us. But to me, I love dystopian literature, but it also feels when you describe to people what you've done and how you've done it, and they look at you very confused, or they look at you like that can't possibly be. To me, it feels very much sometimes like science fiction, because I don't know how else to describe how I got here other than when someone says, how did you get that job? There's I forget, on LinkedIn, it's one of the groups on LinkedIn, and they have it's the American Psychological Association.
Okay.
Has a how did you get that job series. And I've never listened in, but I've always wanted to, just to hear what people say about how they got that job. Because I would never know how to answer other than some strange response where the answer really is, I just said yes. I got lucky. Someone reached out and said, hey, I have this job. Do you want it? Sure, of course I'll take that job. Thank you. And for thinking about me, thank you. And then you get into it and you're like, what is this? But that's how my career is very much felt. I've been very lucky, and my career too is different because that I'm in a different industry. I'm in government contracting here in Washington. And this industry is very insular. Once you're in, you kind of are in, you get to stay in it. You have wonderful opportunities. They're different. And it is easier for us to jump between jobs. We can do that a little easier than I think probably my counterparts in the private sector, because we have a lot of opportunities where it's easier for us to do that. Our career paths are not set. We're sort of I guess it's a choose your own adventure in many ways, right? And I kind of like that, unless you own your own business. And even then it's a choose your own adventure, because it's a different kind of world out here. So I think it's unfair too for me to describe how I got to where I am today, because the environment that I did it in is kind of strange. It's wonderful, but it's kind of strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had this idea when I was 18 going into college of what exactly I was going to do with the next 25 years of my life. Did you feel like you had that much clarity young?
I wanted to own a deli and coffee shop.
Okay.
Okay. That's
So,
all I thought I wanted. And then when I went back to school for psychology, I thought, oh, I want to be a therapist.
okay.
And my mother looked at me and said, no, you don't. She said, you will get wrapped up with your patients wanting to save every single one of them, and it will basically spin you into the ground. So I ended up becoming a consultant, trying to save every company that I work for. And it spins me
You
in the
save
ground.
groups of people.
And I love them. It makes me happy.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, though, that is pretty close to what burnt me out of social work. I had a psychologist friend that while I was having a conversation with him, he's like, you cannot see every hurt person as a kitten out on the road that you have to rescue. You cannot see them as that. You know, they are individual people that have what they need in them. And yes, they're going through a hard time, but like not everybody can you scoop up and put in your pocket and save.
Right. So I didn't do that. I did not know anything other than my first job offer was from a very lovely gentleman who I met at a party.
Okay.
And he said, hey, I work for this great company. Why don't you talk to my boss? And I thought, sure. I thought he was kidding, but it turned out he really wasn't. And it turned out to be one of the largest consulting firms, in the United States. It was an extraordinary opportunity. I had no idea what I was doing there. I am so happy that they hired me, but I had to really, really work hard to make it work. I didn't know what I was getting into, but it turned out that I found the things I like doing. And I was lucky because then I could start to shape my path a little bit and say, okay, these are things I don't like to do. These are things I like to do. How do I keep sort of moving down that path? And so I got to look towards others that were doing work that I thought I would like to do. And they were very kind to letting me do some of that with them along the way, which was really nice.
Yeah. So your door in wasn't so much that you walked through an open door. It's like somebody was like, hey, there's a door here, and opened it for you and was like, if you wanted, like, apply. And then
Yeah.
you met the mark and applied. Did you see that happen a lot with people coming into the organization? Was that kind of how it happened?
I don't know that I really saw it at all. I just knew that
Okay.
people were coming and going. I didn't know how they were getting in there. I
Okay.
assumed they were just filling out job applications or they were being recruited through schools, which I did see a lot of. But beyond that, to be honest, my head was down all the time, working as hard as I could. So I wasn't necessarily paying attention to that. I can tell you that as I moved through the next 10 or 12 years, the same thing happened where my network carried me through getting jobs along the way, where someone would literally call me and say, hey, I have a job that I think you'd be interested in. Okay, great. I'll come and talk to and if anybody on LinkedIn who is connected with me, who is, there all of these years with me and they watch this, they'll go, hey, that was me. So, I'm very big on networking. I'm very big on building a good, solid network. You don't need to have 5,000 people, but you need to have a core group of people who you can help and they can help you back. Are the ones that are going to carry you through, what is really a very long marathon of a career. So I've been very lucky that way. But I just started, I guess, building a network very quickly. Didn't realize the power of that network, but it carried me through. So no, I don't really know. I just got very lucky that first. I don't even know how that happened, other than right place, right time, I guess.
Yeah, I want to talk about, and maybe both of us can share stories, but your perceived mistakes, like your career choice mistakes, whether you pick a big one or a small one to talk about, but then also the different lenses we can use to look at that. Because, when you first approached me, I was like, yeah, pretty much every choice has been a mistake. Like I've made so many, like, well, I guess we're doing this now. And I always felt conflict there because when I'm like tested, I have strengths of like strategy and futurism and stuff like that. And I'm like, how is it possible that I'm strategic and focused on the future and I still make these choices that I'm like, but then on the other side, while I don't want to go back to creating a narrative, I want to resist doing that and like acting like it was all smooth and I knew what I was doing before I took these steps out of organizations or into organizations. I can look and see like how much I picked up from each job. Some, it was just a terrible experience, and now I can empathize with people that have terrible experiences. And some I really saw leaders that I wanted to be like, or like I'd be able to think through later and like look at like, okay, what were their strengths that made me feel, like belonging or valued or whatever that was. So, do you have like a mistake that you made that you want to share? And if so, can you kind of talk through both sides of that? Like one lens, like this was the wrong choice because of X, Y, or Z. And on the other side, like, okay, but here's what I got from it, even if it was a mistake.
So before we click the record button, we were just talking about some of these. For me, I think as I'm now getting to a point where I wanted to be competitive for what should be leadership positions in the industry that I'm in, or really those higher level positions, I found that I'm not competitive for them because of mistakes I made when I was really starting my career out. And this is for me, I discovered what I didn't want to do, or what I told myself, right, I did not want to do, which was manage people or do business development, learn how to write proposals, learn how to sell work, learn how to manage budgets, all of those things that a good leader should know how to do, good executives should know how to do at those positions. I actively avoided that work. In fact, I quit a number of jobs where those opportunities were put in front of me. And I said, I don't want to do that. I rejected it outright. And 20 something years later, I wonder if it was just something I was telling myself, because as I'm looking at these jobs, I'm going, I could do that, except I can't do half of it. And then I think I had just mentioned, again, before we were talking, but I am happy with where I am. Maybe that's another story. And so I don't really know. I'm where I am. I made my choices. I did think some years ago that those were mistakes in not taking those opportunities. As I was thinking about the next phase of my career, I always told myself I wanted to just be a practitioner, wanted to do the work, want to help people, and I wanted to stay out of the administrivia of, I wanted to let someone else win the work, let them own the business, let them run their own business. Now I kind of wonder if that was such a great thing for me to do, was to avoid all those things, even though I am happy with what I'm doing. But these are all stories I'm telling myself, maybe just to make myself feel better about those decisions. I do think those are terrible mistakes to have walked away from those opportunities. I should have at least taken them, spent time doing them, so I could at least gain that experience. That's really, for me, the big regret is I tell people now, you can do anything for a year. Well, I didn't. I walked away with the first 3 months. So while I tell people you can do anything for a year, I did not do that. When the opportunity was presented to me, I walked away very quickly.
Okay, instead of testing it.
Instead of testing it to see really if the minute someone said, hey, guess what? You have to manage a small group. Hey, here's a sales target that you have to achieve. I think I probably went, absolutely not. And that probably was really the wrong thing for me to do. I should have said, okay, maybe this is a challenge I should take, even though this is out of my comfort zone. Maybe I should have done that. And I don't know what would have happened if I did, because I obviously would not be here talking to you right now, most likely, because something else would have changed along the way. And I would have somehow veered off and maybe not accepted the job that changed my career, that gave me the career I have now. Had I stayed in the job prior to that a little longer.
Do you think it was just comfort zone stuff, like, or was there other things?
I think it was just comfort zone. I think it was just me saying, I don't want to do those things. I'm not good at it. How am I going to, do I really want to do this? All I know is being a practitioner. That's all I knew when this opportunity was given to me. I'd only known doing the work, and I was happy doing the work. And all of a sudden I'm sitting in sales meetings. I'm sitting in proposal writing meetings. I'm going, I don't know any of what's going on here. I can't even raise my hand to say something even remotely intelligent. And I just sat there almost paralyzed, not knowing what to do.
Okay. That had a big impact on you.
It did. I kind of remember that job, and hopefully the person who is, maybe she'll watch this, maybe she won't. I felt bad about leaving, so much so that I reached out to her sometime after, just to almost apologize for for walking away.
Yeah.
because I felt so bad about it, because it was my fault. It was easy for me to blame someone else, to say, this was a terrible job, but it wasn't. Would have been an incredible opportunity had I taken it on, probably.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. So yeah, I do. There's a lot from that moment,
Yeah. Was her response what you expected to you reaching out to apologize?
It was incredibly, it was really nice to be able to go and have that conversation, because I just felt like I had gotten to say that I was sorry for, not being the person that she brought on.
Okay.
So, and she was so gracious about the whole thing, and it's been years, and it's nice to still be connected. We don't speak a lot, but it's really nice to still be connected. I know
Mm-hmm.
that if I reached out to her, she would happily write me back and say, sure, let's get together, or whatever. And it's really nice, because I felt like I needed to repair. That's a big career mistake too. Don't burn a bridge. Don't burn bridges. Don't
Okay.
burn.
I'm so bad at that one.
Don't do
Keep
not.
talking.
Don't burn bridges. Leave well. Make sure that if you have to burn a bridge, you better understand what's going to happen because of it. Don't do it. It's
I
not,
agree.
because people talk, right? I'm in a very small industry. I also don't want to do that. I don't want, the last thing I want is when someone mentions my name in a group that I'm not around in that group. I really don't want people to go, oh, I don't like that person.
Okay.
I don't want that. I
Yeah.
don't want it. I want people to think, my only goal is for people to think that I was kind and tried to help. And those are the two big things that really matter to me.
Okay.
Like, personally and professionally, I want you to think me as being kind and someone who cares
Mm-hmm.
enough and also wants to help. That's it. So
Yeah.
if I do something that's really terrible, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if my behavior, so tell me if I burn bridges or if it's something else. So pretty core to me is like, when something's done, I'm just like, okay, peace out. And I like leave. I don't say goodbye or anything. I'm done with the situation. I walk away, whether it's a conversation or a job. So the biggest example I can think of is I was somewhere nearly 10 years, and they always had goodbye parties for people that left. But I was leaving frustrated with leadership and not voicing that. And I was also leaving at a time where there were quite a few other people leaving as well. And so I told myself, it's okay to say you don't want to party, because the reason can be that the company doesn't need another morale hit. Like, the company doesn't need like a party for someone else leaving when there's so many people leaving. So I didn't do a goodbye party, and I was very happy with that decision. But then I had people coming to my office like, oh, is there no goodbye party? Or like later texting me like, oh, you're gone. Like, it just happened. And there's been multiple situations in my life where when I'm done, I'm just like, bye. And I guess I've classified that as burning bridges, which maybe it isn't, and maybe it is, but there's so many people in all of those realms that I just never talk to again.
I don't know that that's burning a bridge. It's just, when we work with someone that we like and they leave, we want to say goodbye properly.
Yeah.
So I think that's just that's just human nature. We like saying, we like closure. And if we don't get that closure, we're like, hey, what happened? Was it us? Right? Did you walk away because you didn't want to say goodbye? Or was it you? And so but I don't think that's burning a bridge, other than it's just, people do want very much to have some closure once you leave.
Mm-hmm.
But if you didn't feel comfortable doing it, that's okay. I don't think that's a problem. I think a lot of us, by the way, leave jobs and never speak to our colleagues ever again. I'd like to think too that is, I can tell you a number of people who I've formed lifelong friendships with, just from work.
Mm-hmm.
Even from that very first job, second job, third job, even jobs that I have left, maybe under not the best circumstances, I've tried very hard to retain as many of those friendships as I can. And that, I think, is wonderful. I think that's a really nice thing. We work with people, we see people more than sometimes we're with our families, at least,
Yeah.
now, of course, we're teleworking, but once upon a time, you spent most of your day with your colleagues. And I got to travel with a lot of my colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
And so you spend a great deal of time with them on airplanes and hotels, in someone else's office, going to lunch and dinner and breakfast. And if you do that enough, you form friendships that I think transcend the office.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've tried very hard to maintain them. It's not always easy, but I have tried to, at least in some way, shape, or form, keep in touch, even if it's just through Facebook, with
Mm-hmm.
people that I once worked with, even if I don't get to see them as often as I'd like to. It's nice to see them and where they are now compared to where we were back then. And
Mm-hmm.
it's nice to speak to it's nice to speak to them now and then too. It's really lovely. So I'm not telling you to go back and rekindle those old work relationships, but there's some value in that. And it also does build a network, but it also it's very nice to have beyond work, because work is a big part of our lives. And when we can't, it's hard to separate. We're doing it now, but once upon a time, it was hard to separate both.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah.
it's easier now.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's easier now. I don't know. It feels like it is.
Yeah, I feel like, well, at least in my own life, I have to physically divide my life better. But past that, yeah, this switch is easier.
So, but yeah, those are for me, the idea of avoiding things that made me uncomfortable professionally. I feel like I wish I could go back and redo some of those things, see what would have happened. You could have that sort of screen that you would go look at that would show the life you had versus the one you have now. If you could have just made that one choice, would you be happy? I have no idea. I think I would have been. I think seeing my friends and colleagues who did choose that path, some of them are extremely happy. And I think some of them have maybe the same questions. Is this really what I wanted to do?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
Yeah.
I think we all get to that point.
If you had 3 minutes with the Dan that was staying in his comfort bubble, what would you say to him about that mindset, or like to show empathy or care about him?
I don't know. That's a good question. I ran so hard and I never really stopped. Talk about being burned out. I don't know that I'm not sure what I would have listened to.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would have done that. Oh, yeah, you're just telling me that. But we'd had this, I don't know, we didn't so much have this conversation as I was online with you and you were talking, and you'd made the comment that you knew someone that punched hard to get to where they were. And I reasonably certain you were talking about me. I don't know what I would tell that person other than don't be afraid of things that you're currently afraid of, right?
Okay.
Because there was a lot of fear that drove my decisions. It drove my career. You have to stay working. You have to get some, certain type of salary. You have to make sure you're always busy. You have to worry about all these different things around you. You always have to worry about getting better and better, because you have people coming after you, right? You have all the competition around you, and your only job is to survive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I never slowed down enough. I would have, if I was me now talking to that person back then, I'd be like, whoa, you gotta calm down. Like you have to just, and my answer, the younger me would have said, I can't. How am I supposed to do that?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I cannot slow down right now. I have to keep doing what I'm doing.
That is such a heavy burden to bear, that belief.
Yeah, it is very heavy. You burn out. It's taking me all these years to go, I don't have to work like that anymore. I don't have to be that hard charging kind of person anymore. I don't want to do that. I want to do the work I love doing. I want to do it for the people I love doing it for. I will work hard when I need to work hard. I want to make sure that they're getting the value of me. But that old hard charging 15-hour a day, getting on airplanes and all of that, and trying to be, this Herculean effort all the time. You can't do that you can't do that forever. It burns you out.
Mm-hmm.
Burns you out.
So you being able to push back now, is that wisdom from where you've been and what you've experienced, or is it that like you've created some space and safety bubble for yourself because you've been in this environment? You like have financial padding, you're okay, you have a really good network, like you have a safer place to land or places that you can land now that your network's big enough? Like, how do those two things play in your ability to push back at that urge to be Herculean all the time?
I think it's just age, and it
Okay.
is a place of comfort, right? It is very much, I've gotten to a point where maybe I do have some, cushion to fall back on, a network to fall back on. Although, to be honest, I don't know that I could get another job if I was looking for one
Okay.
at my age. That's another conversation, right?
Mhm.
So, to be honest, there still is a pressure to continue to want people to value me and want me to continue to work. And so the job I have is a very good one. I'm very blessed to work for people who are still willing to keep me, right? Still willing to say, yes, we still want you to keep doing this work for us. My question is, what happens if all of a sudden one day they say, well, gee, we really can't, right? It's out of our control. It's not you. It's just, this is something we have no options, and we're sorry, because that's what we are as consultants and contractors. We are, it's different than being at will. It's, you really are, you really are at will, but you're at the whim of a lot of factors that you may have no control over. I don't know if that would mean I would have to retire.
Mm.
I get to, aside from doing this work that I do from 9 to 5, I do get to teach, which I do love. And so I would still have that, but that is not necessarily a second career for me. It's something I enjoy doing because I get to work with wonderful students, and I get to do this once a year. I don't have to do this 3 or 4 times every semester. I don't know what that would be like, and I don't know that I would enjoy that. So I don't have a good answer other than it is age and I think exhaustion. There's a little wisdom in there that I have. I don't. I still think I have to prove myself, but not in the same way I once did.
Okay.
I need to still show my value and prove that I'm still worthy of the work.
Okay.
But once upon a time, is much different. You have to really, you're always constantly proving that you're worth, being there every day, every minute, sometimes in the jobs that you're in. What did you do for me lately is really, it's a problem when that kind of cycles in your head, when you're always thinking, God, I always have to show my value every minute of every day. That's hard. That's a lot of pressure on people. That has shifted to, if I can help one person every day, just one, I've done a good job that day. I don't have to help 1,000 people. I don't have to do 12 hours of Herculean work or effort. If I help one person and make their day better, make their day suck a little less, because something I know that I can do for them or did for them, that is a wonderful thing. This was not too long ago where I did something for someone. I knew how to do it. I knew it would take me 5 minutes. And I did this, I sent it to them, and I got this lovely email back saying, I think this would have taken me 5 hours and you did it in 5 minutes. And I'm really grateful. And it wasn't that I knew something special. I had just done this so many times that it was good through sheer repetition, right? Like a battlefield surgeon could do the same thing over and over and over, and they look brilliant at it. They've just done it so many times. But it made me really happy, because if I truly did, and I don't know that it would have taken them that long, but if it had taken them even an hour or two, the fact that they didn't have to worry about it, and that I could give them something that they could just go run with, that made my day. And that was one of the first times I realized that all I have to do is maybe try and do one good deed per day, and maybe that's enough, for me to be satisfied. So it's usually more than one good deed, but there are days where I feel like, what did I do today? Did I help anybody today? And if I didn't, I actually feel a little guilty if I didn't.
Okay.
There's still that guilt in me, right?
Yeah. I understand that. I mean, you were transitioning from, like 14, 16-hour days of Herculean effort, like all the way pedal to the metal. And, through age and I think wisdom, you've transitioned to realizing this is what's in my control. I can impact one person a day. So I can understand how, if you feel like you missed the mark over here, knowing this is where you came from, that it would have an emotional impact on you. Yeah. That switch from, the Herculean effort to like, I can impact one person's day, or I can do one thing to impact somebody's moment. Was that a really clear switch, or did that come like gradually for you?
It took a very long time.
Okay.
It took years. It was almost its own midlife crisis.
Okay.
in many ways,
Uh-huh.
because you're used to doing the same thing all the time, every day. And then all of a sudden you realize you can't do that anymore. And that there is a pain involved in that, right? There's an emotional, you're sort of detaching yourself from who you think you used to be. And you have to transition into something else that is unknown. You don't know what it is. And I will admit that I was very, I found myself apologizing to people for being, I don't know, crabbier than people expect. I guess people expect me to smile and be nice, and I try to be that person. But there were plenty of days where I'm like, I'm really sorry. I'm really just not. I'm really not all here today. And it was because I was trying to figure out who I was and go through this transition of, and I almost did leave. I almost quit this job, which would have been a terrible mistake. That would have been the biggest career mistake ever.
Okay.
And with a lot of talking to people and a lot of just thinking through how I could make this shift from who I was to where I am right now, it took a few years,
Yeah.
and it took other people to say it's okay. You don't have to do that every day.
Okay. So
That
like
was
people
very
verbally
helpful.
saying that to you.
Yeah, I found it very comforting to have someone say you don't have to do that every day. It's impossible. You can't. No one can do that.
Yeah.
You can only do that for so long,
Yeah.
right? Before you get burned out
Mm-hmm.
and you walk away. I think that's why most people walk away from their jobs after a certain number of years of truly being burned out from it, or something else happens to them. They go down some other really dark path. It's because
Mm-hmm.
they've never slowed down. It's really nice to slow down, because now I feel like when I do something, it's good. Like I can almost point to something every day now and go, I'm really happy with that,
Mm-hmm.
with that piece of work I did,
Yeah.
you know?
That's
And
amazing.
if I don't do everything that I wanted to do that day, I have to be okay with that. Yeah.
Yeah. And you've learned to hold that tension rather than sacrifice yourself to not have that internal tension.
Right. It's still there. I'm still working through it. I mean, I'm doing great, and I'll get better, right? It's that old, but it's true, right? This will be till the very day that I probably truly retire. I will still say the exact same thing. Yeah. But I'm trying to get better every single day.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know that I have that mentality. I want to move stuff every day. If I'm not like, yeah, I don't think my focus is so much give someone like be kind and give them a good moment or something, but it's like I want to move boulders up the mountains.
Right.
Like at least move one every day. That identity thing though that you said has been such a hard lesson I've had to relearn. I've noticed a pattern. It's like every 6 to 7 years, I have to like take a few weeks and just consciously like unsnap my identity from my job. And it's so gross. It's hard. I'm cranky, but I'm better off on the other side, even though I know I'm probably gonna have to do this again in about 5 years. I think I'm getting a little bit better at it. And I think entrepreneurship forced me into more of the mindset like I might run 15 businesses like in the next 30 years or so. And there's no way everything I start is going to be great. Therefore, my identity can't be attached to the stuff that I'm doing if I want to like do what I think I'm supposed to be doing, like actively working on problems the way that I want to. And I think so in that way, I think entrepreneurship has helped me stay unsnapped. But then I have the problem of like, okay, who the heck am I? Like,
Right. Who am I?
where's my value? Where's my worth? Because
Right.
it's not in my job.
I think it's really hard for us to describe who we are, what we do, and because it also sounds like science fiction, the work we do, because we're in the same field. We do them in different industries, but we do the same crazy work.
Yeah.
And trying to describe it to people can take a week and a half, and they go, I don't really understand what you do. Right? We get it because we do it, we live it, and we can laugh about it and joke about it. And I hope that people watching this who do the crazy stuff that we do can shake their head and go, oh, I get it. I explained to my family and friends and they don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard. I don't know that I have an identity other than it's weird to call yourself a consultant, because then people wonder if you're out of work. And that term also has become so broad, right? I guess I should tell this story. I was a consultant with this company that I had just started with, was my first job out of school.
Okay.
Suits and beautiful marble bathrooms and this stunning building and credit, the expense accounts and great travel and incredible clients and crazy work. And we had the title, consultant. And I was walking through a department store, and all of a sudden I heard over the microphone someone paging a sales consultant to come help with something. And I went, oh, it's a very broad term, isn't it? And then I started paying more attention to that term, and it became very difficult for me to describe what I did by just telling people that I was a consultant.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my mom was really interested in what I was doing. So I did that thing where for one day, I kept a journal of what I did.
Okay.
And I wrote her a very long email at the end of the day. I said, this was my day. This is what happened when I woke up. This is sort of what I did during the day with my client. This was what I did with my team afterwards. And now I'm back in my hotel room. And she wrote me back and she said, oh, that's nice.
Pat, pat, pat.
Pat, pat, pat. And, so our identity, I don't even know how to describe. I don't even know how to talk about myself in terms of the work, other than I give myself whatever title I can at the moment, or I try to describe to people what I do. And it's very, very difficult. Once upon a time, I used to tell people my job was to solve problems, right? That's what consultants are supposed to, we're supposed to solve problems. And now I tell people that my job is just to make things suck a little less for people. Right? To take the pain away a little bit, if I can. Because I don't think I've ever really truly been, it's hard to think of what we do as truly being successful, because it's difficult. It's very messy work.
Mm-hmm.
If we can help, someone somewhere, we've done a good job.
Yeah.
But yeah, career mistakes have also led to not being able to describe what I do for a living.
Oh my word. It's so true. Family vacations, I actively work to if I'm in a conversation, see what's going to happen 10 minutes down the road in the conversation, because I don't want to talk about what I do, because I know it's going to take over the whole room, and we're going to be talking about that for the next 2 hours if people insist on knowing. So I just avoid the topic.
That's right. And it's exhausting. It's really interesting, because the split that I have in my life from the 99% of my time as a consultant and the 1% of my time as adjunct faculty, everybody understands that. You say, oh, I teach a course at a local university. Oh, and everybody thinks they know what a professor does. Great, you probably do. And then they say, what do you teach? And that is also then when things go downhill, because I tell them I teach a course in government contracting, and they go, what's that? If they're not here in DC, if that's not their world, they go, I don't understand what that is. And then you spend another week and a half describing the industry, and they go, I don't know what you just said. Do you have a job? And they always said, do you have a job? Right, because it always gets back to work.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah,
my go-to right now, with neighbors or whatever, if they're asking, I'm just oh, I do project-based work, or pick one topic, oh yeah, sure, I do projects with that.
But that's a nice thing though about being here in DC, because so many of us do the same thing, that we sort of have a really good sense generally of the environments that we're in and the kind of work that we do, even though if we don't understand the technical aspects of the differences in our work. That's where it is actually really nice being here. Except I do have a lot of friends who are here who are not in the industry and don't really have much to do with it. So for them, it's a whole different thing. But it is nice to be with people who have done the same things, because we can talk about, we can kind of cry together, right?
Yeah.
The whole tissue box thing, we can kind of talk about our own mistakes that we've all made with each other. But I don't know, I'm not sure there are. It's funny, we could bring it back full circle about the whole career mistake thing. I really am happy with where I am. I don't know, it's easy to call those things mistakes, but we are where we are. Right, we've gotten to the point where we are. We made those decisions that we made, and we made them for the reasons we made them for, whether they were stories that we told ourselves, or we just said, this is what I'm going to go do. I think we just have to, at some point, you have to be happy with where you are, right? You have to figure out how to be happy in that moment right now where you are, right? Wherever you go, guess what? They're, you're there. So I don't know. It
Yeah.
takes a long time.
Yeah. And I used to think those two things were totally separate. Like if I was going to go do the woo thing of, find my center and all of that stuff, that meant I'm laying down all of the job stuff, but they end up aligned. Like by the time you're, I don't know, 40 or something, like to be pretty aligned, like who you are and what your job is. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's what I feel like I see. The way that you are, depending on, or no matter what industry you're in, like that's going to show up in your personal life and your work, and they're just going to end up more aligned than not.
We are, I always have this theory that we are the way we are at work.
Mm-hmm.
It's much the same as we bring all of ourselves. We bring our personal selves to our professional selves all the time. It's very easy to look at someone who in an office is stressed out. We can see how they're sort of behaving. We can see the things they do. And it's easy to imagine them doing that at home, or it's easy sometimes to go, God, I wonder if that person has an easy home life because of how they are here.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it's very, those two, you can't, I don't think it's possible for us to separate our personal or professional. The other mistake, and you kind of, this topic sort of moves onto this, is you have to have stuff outside of work that makes you happy. If work should not be your only vice. It shouldn't be the only thing that you can point to. I think not having stuff outside of work, a good hobby, good relationships, but really other interests beside your professional interests, that's going to help you grow, I think, professionally as well. And it's going to make you happier as you move on in your career, because you can't just have that. It's very sad to hear someone say, this is all I have, because you have to retire at some point. If you should not work. I personally don't think you should work until the last day that you possibly can. I think at some point you have to have enough so that you can step away, let the next generation come in, be a good mentor, maybe teach if you can, do something that still keeps you connected. But I think you have to have separate hobbies, separate interests that you can look towards to help you get out and to help you have a good transition. I've made sure that I have those things so that when it's truly time for me to say, hey, I've had a wonderful career, I'm done, the next morning when I wake up, I have something to do. And the next day and the next day. And I think I actually see that as a career mistake for people who are a generation or two older than me who don't have those things. And I worry about them.
Okay.
I worry about them a lot. And they're going to be your client one day, where you're going to be having to help them to gently leave. And they're going to go, I have nothing else. You're going to have to know how to deal with that.
Yes. Yeah. And watch them walk through the pain.
Right.
And not even show you all of it.
Right. Because our work isn't just about our clients. It's about us. It's what we believe. It's what we bring to our clients, but it's always about us. Mm-hmm. And so we have to, I think it's incumbent upon us to know who we are, to know others. And so, it's not just about us personally, but we work with a lot of leadership because of what we do. We have to look at them and go, gee, I wonder what they're struggling with too. And if this is something that they're struggling with, you should definitely feel free to have that conversation with them, bring that pain up and say, there's more to your life than just this work. There has to be. And if you don't have that, let's go talk about how to find that, because you can't stay here till you die with your boots on. That no one wants that.
Yeah. And everything's connected. I mean, the way you feel when you go home at night is absolutely connected to what you're doing at 1 p.m. at work. It just is.
It just is. So, yeah. So I don't know if this is a natural end to this conversation or if it's a beginning for another one. But
maybe. Yeah, this was really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good combo. Yeah, and I feel like I'm walking away with more things to think about than even before. I don't know, like there's a lot of nuance here. I knew it was a big topic and that we're handling it wrong in our culture, or at least what I see of work culture around me, we're handling it wrong. We don't talk about our mistakes as mistakes. We talk about like, it was an opportunity or it was meant to be and everything will work out. Like, that's not true.
It's not true.
Like, you're going to make massive mistakes and they're
Right.
going to suck and they will have 25-year impacts. That doesn't mean everything sucks.
Right. It's not a bad thing, right? It's really not. So
Yes.
what do you think your biggest mistake has been so far in your career?
Um, I think it is the financial mistake to go into social work first. When I was in college, I got a psych undergraduate degree. And in my school, it wasn't like, my university almost acted like this psych degree didn't exist. So it was like not funded at all. And it was almost all social workers. And I totally thought I was better than all of them because I was not going to go into social work. I was just here to get the degree and then go get a master's in business. I get out and I immediately go into social work. I didn't hate the work, but I was chronically underpaid for like 12 years, like making a third of what I should have been able to make if I'd gone into like, I don't know, business or something like that. And I became aware of that about 10 years in. And in some ways, I feel like we have just been like sprinting hard, like my husband and I, since then, because he went into social work as well. We went in together. In the first like 4 years, we were essentially working the same job. We were in residential with kids. Yeah. And then I learned I'm in this cohort between Gen X and millennials, where there's a 6-year block of us, that this cohort is the poorest cohort that's ever come through the US, even taking into consideration the Great Depression. And so I felt so justified, but it was my decision to go into social work. And I can let that sour things for me, like be really annoyed that I feel like I'm so far behind financially from where my peers are that went into business or became entrepreneurs right away instead of, going into social work. But then I put on that other lens on the other side, and I think about all the things I gained and all the skills and strengths I realized I had, because it's kind of a safe bubble, social work. Everybody that's in there is they're so sweet and kind. And I was like, structure and regulation and let's get this snapped up and let's build a system. So I ended up having a lot of people kind of leaning on me. So I was able to grow, I think, more quickly identifying and using those strengths than I maybe would have in a business setting where more people thought like I did. But when I think about my career mistakes, the first thing that always comes to my mind is I never should have gone into social work. But at the same time, like, there's no way I'd be where I was if I hadn't made that mistake.
You are who you are because of it, and it's great.
Yeah, I think so.